Hello everyone, welcome to the final installment of Let's Play Dragon Age Awakening Dwarven Commoner Edition. In our last installment, we slayed the mother, but we also learned that it was, well, the architect's fault that the whole blight happened in the first place. And, well, that's not cool. But the mother is slain, the city of Amaranthine is safe, and we shall now learn of the aftermath of these events. So, without further ado, I shall now read the epilogue. After the death of the mother, the remaining Darkspawn forces scattered and fled back into the deep roads. The raids on Amaranthine came to an abrupt end. The architect apparently kept his word, gathering his remaining disciples to follow the rest of their kind back underground. Those Grey Wardens and other nations were appalled to hear of the architect's continued existence, but were unable to track him down despite years of effort. Some within the Order claimed that the architect's survival guarantees another blight, and yet the deep roads have lately been quieter than any can recall. Most have resignedly decided that it is now in the Maker's hands. Word of the Grey Warden's heroic salvation of Amaranthine spread like wildfire. With the magnitude of the losses at Vigil's Keep came to light, sympathy drove generous donations from all over Ferelden into the region's coffers. Amaranthine was restored to her former glory within a year, Vigil's Keep in 5. Because of the Warden's support for law and order in Amaranthine, Constable Aiden and his men were able to distribute the smugglers' goods to the battered survivors in the grueling days that followed the Darkspawn defeat. The Darkspawn messenger, set free after joining the Wardens in the Battle of Amaranthine, struck out on his own. The city soon buzzed with stories of a cloaked but lisping figure who aided travelers in danger. At the same time, reports of isolated cases of the Darkspawn disease emerged. No one can connect the two. Although the war devastated many farms in the Arling, all agreed the loss would have been greater without soldiers for protection. The farmholds developed a certain reverence for the Warden commander, as well as an ongoing reliance on the Grey Wardens for order and protection. Dirk, one of the pranksters behind the Blight Orphans scam, was fortunate enough to survive the Battle of Amaranthine. The unconditional generosity of the Blight Orphans' mysterious benefactor inspired him to establish a legitimate charity dedicated to children orphaned in the attack. His sweetheart, Melissa, eventually bore him 2 rascals. Vigil's Keep stood alone against a horde of Darkspawn. The Mother's forces outnumbered the Vigil's defenders many times over. But the sturdy dwarven walls proved impervious to any boulder an ogre could throw. The Vigil soldiers, clad in silverite, each felled a dozen Darkspawn before they died. The Vigil held 1 night, then 2, then a week, and eventually the attacking horde broke upon her walls. The keep developed an almost mythic reputation, the few survivors immortalized in song and legend. Peace allowed the Wardens to replenish their numbers. Soon, Vigil's Keep bore a capable army with Wardens at its core. From their ranks emerged new heroes to challenge threats to Amaranthine and all of Ferelden. Through taxes and levies, the Vigil was rebuilt. Years later, Vuldrik Glavinok stood at the battlements and pronounced that the defenses were acceptable. He would never speak more highly of any human engineering. Dark whispers of conspiracy against the Wardens fell silent after a rash of accidents and disappearances culminated in the apparent suicide of Ben Esmerel. The nobles of Amaranthine remained dutiful. Some even suggest they were cowed into submission. Among the many legends that the Vigil spawned, one of the great heroes of the next age, a shepherdier turned soldier by the name of Sir Alec the Valiant, who eventually founded an order of knights that lasted 1,000 years. Wow, that's pretty awesome. So Alec got to be pretty good, awesome dude. The Vigil soldiers, wearing their distinctive silverite armor that Master Wade crafted, came to be known as the Silver Order. Under the tutelage of the Wardens, the Silver Order developed into one of the into one of Ferelden's most revered military forces, a lasting memory of the Vigil's famous commander. Sweet! I founded the Silver Order, which is so cool. Anyway, with Valana and the Architect gone from the region, the Pilgrim's Path began to see traffic again. The massacre of the militiamen and the merchants, however, led to hostilities between the neighboring human settlements and any Dalish clans that passed by. One human villager soon kidnapped and murdered a Dalish child. The clans reacted by giving Wendingwood a wide berth, but both sides knew that at some point the elves would return for revenge. A few years after Calharol was emptied of Darkspawn, Orzammar began sending expeditions to rediscover the knowledge of smithing that had been lost within the Taig. Eventually, House Helmi decided that Calharol was too important to be abandoned. At a tremendous cost of dwarven lives, they cleared the tunnels leading to Calharol of all Darkspawn, making the road between Orzammar and the fortress safe again. Calharol was reclaimed for Orzammar once and for all. As promised, Vuldrik and Dworkin presented Orzammar Shaperate with the stone marker that told of how Calharol's castlet had taken up arms against the Darkspawn. The commander of the Grey was invited to Orzammar as a guest of honor at a feast commemorating the defenders of Calharol. The Shaper read the names of the castlists off the marker, then presided over a ceremony to return them to the stone as befitted warriors of their stature. In time, the Arling began to forget tales of the apparitions of the Black Marsh, and even slowly settlers drifted into the region. Scholars said the veil was still thin and thus the area was still dangerous, but the people only cared that there were no longer frightened whispers in the shadows. The village was slowly rebuilt. Twice the Baroness's mansion was rebuilt and occupied, once by a wealthy merchant and another time by an Orlesian mage. Both died mysteriously. Afterwards, the mansion was torn down completely and the site left untouched. The survivors of the siege of Vigil's Keep hailed Anders and his magic for holding back hundreds of the assaulting Darkspawn. In the ensuing celebration, the men dragged the mage to the fire to engage him in a drinking contest. Anders lost. Anders remained with the Grey Wardens for a few years longer, training the Order's next generation of mages. Cool. But when the Circle Tower called on him to deliver a lecture on the nature of the Architect, much to the Templars' dismay, Anders told the commander of the Grey that his time with the Wardens was over. Ooh. And yet, not 2 months later, Anders returned to the Order. Even after, the Wardens were his home and his lasting companions. Aw, that's sweet. Valana never saw her clan again, but neither did she forsake her Dalish culture, nor her sharp tongue, nor her quick temper. After several years in the Grey Wardens, Valana disappeared one day. Most surmise that she left the Deep Roads to resume the search for her sister, but no one knows for sure. Over the next years, Nathaniel dedicated himself to the Order, and to clearing the blemishes on his family's name. After saving Terran Fergus Cousland from a bandit attack, a portion of Amaranthine was returned to the house. Oh, that's cool. Nathaniel passed the holding to Delilah's son, and when a new castle was eventually built there, a statue of Nathaniel was erected in its courtyard. Justice fought valiantly at the Battle of Vigil's Keep, but before the victory horn was sounded, a Darkspawn sword removed Kristoff's head. It was, of course, unclear whether the spirit of justice perished or simply departed. At the least, Kristoff's wife, Aura, was finally able to claim her husband's ashes. It was Sigrun who led the charge against the Darkspawn when Vigil's Keep was attacked. Once again, she had an army behind her, and once again, they fought Darkspawn with no hope of survival. This time, Sigrun did not flee. Oghren continued to regale the young Warden recruits with tales of his prowess in both battle and bed. His drinking games prompted at least one recruit to declare that she'd rather reattempt the joining than lift another mug. At the Warden Commander's urging, Oghren took a more active role in his child's life. He visited Felsi often and wrote letters, with the Warden Commander graciously proofreading them nearly every week. As for the savior of Ferelden, she did not remain commander of the Grey for long. The Darkspawn were no longer a real concern, the Blight well and truly over. It was time for her to move on. Some claimed she returned to Alistair, her true love, and life far away from both Ferelden and the royal court. Some say she served the Grey Wardens elsewhere, Alistair at her side, or the two of... I'm sorry, I'm not articulate. Or that the two of them were seen often at the palace in Denerim. After a number of years, however, neither she nor Alistair were seen again. Perhaps they undertook some missions on behalf of the Grey Wardens, or departed for their own adventures, or simply disappeared. Most assume that their tale is far from complete. And that, my friends, is the end of Dragon Age Awakening. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for staying with me through to the end. Gilda's story is not quite over, as we will be doing Dragon Age Witch Hunt, which will tell us of what happened to Morrigan after the events of the Blight. But once that is complete, it will be time for Gilda to take a rest, and for a new hero to take the stage. The champion of Kirkwall, and soon, the Inquisitor, who will save everyone from the tear in the sky. So with that, I bid you all farewell until the next Let's Play. See ya, and have a wonderful day.